From the looming strike by Alberta teachers to a tense exchange at the final Alberta Next town hall, and an Alberta MP launching a bid for leadership of the federal NDP. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, Chris Spearman, former mayor of Lethbridge, and Chaldeans Mensah, faculty member in the Department of Political Science at MacEwan University. Good evening, gentlemen. And let's begin with the countdown to a strike by Alberta teachers after nearly 90% of ATA members rejected the government's latest offer. Chris, what's your read on why this labour dispute remains unresolved? That Albertans staring down what's said to be not only the largest strike by educators in the province, but maybe even the largest strike ever in Alberta history.
My take on it is it's about the relationship as much as the offer. The government has offered 12% over 4 years, so about 3% a year, plus hiring 3,000 new teachers, which would seem to be a reasonable offer. But the government's also claiming that the teachers' leaders haven't been clear on what their desired outcome is. There's a lot of resentment against the government, and I think it's about the relationship as much as it is about the offer.
Chaldeans, is a strike inevitable? Has this passed the point of no return?
I think we are headed for a strike, Michael, but they have to get back to the bargaining table. TIBA and the ATA have to meet because this is going to have a very, very significant negative impact on families. We are in a critical period when kids have to learn, and parents are going to be put in a very, very tough situation if this strike continues. Excuse me, if this strike it takes place and it's become a protracted strike. So the government will be forced, I think, eventually, if things don't work out, to introduce a back-to-work legislation, which would necessarily poison the well and make things even difficult and really sour the relationship between the teachers and the government.
Chris, if talks are to resume in the near term to avoid this job action, whose court is the ball in right now to open the door, say, let's talk, let's figure this out?
Well, I think the government has to improve the relationship with teachers. This isn't something that just happened as part of the collective agreement negotiations. This has been building for some time, and I think the government has to make a positive first step to demonstrate respect for teachers. Teachers do not feel respected, and that's a big part of why this hasn't been resolved to this point.
Chaldeans, what do you make of the government preparing to give families impacted by a strike $30 a day to deal with the impact? What message is that sending at this point?
Well, I think the government doesn't want to have this strike impact negatively on families. So this offer of payment support, it is designed to quell any political damage that could come back to hit the government. But I think realistically, the teachers want class sizes capped or reduced. They want improvements into the dynamics in the classroom. What the government is offering is that, look, yes, they acknowledge that things are complex in the classroom, but they say that, look, we don't have the capacity to be able to deliver the space to do that kind of cap. So they're offering a short-term educational assistance and other mechanisms to address that complexity. I think this is going to be a tough situation here, and perhaps the government can sweeten the pot a little bit on the pay side, and the ATA has to acknowledge that the class size cap is not going to be done immediately. It's going to take some time to work through.
All right. Well, from the prospect of a teacher strike to tensions involving a student at the final Alberta Next town hall held in Calgary Monday evening.
I applaud you coming here to speak. I don't applaud how you're trying to speak. It's not making any sense. I know you'd love some chaos, but your parents should turn you over your knee. Let's go over here.
That's Bruce McAllister, Executive Director of the Premier's office, scolding a high school student, asking a question about the looming teacher strike. And the youth's microphone was cut off before he could finish his question, right ahead of McAllister's comment. The former MLA posting an apology on social media Tuesday, saying he regrets the inappropriate remark. Chaldeans, what is to be made of that exchange between Bruce McAllister and the grade 12 student? How that dynamic played out?
Well, Michael, first of all, I applaud that student for coming to a political meeting to contribute his input into the political process. This is what we need our young people to do, to be engaged. So I think kudos for that young person who took that initiative. Clearly, this was a damaging display by Mr. McAllister. He's apologized. The Premier has issued a yellow card. Obviously, she didn't want to bring out a red card. Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for this person to improve his performance and hopefully manage the online next panel session that is coming up tonight and move things forward.
Chris, while there have been calls for Bruce McAllister to be fired, to Chaldean's point there a moment ago, the Premier says she's asked him to do better next time and considers the matter closed. Is that as far as it needs to go? Where do you weigh in here?
Well, I say no. Mr. McAllister's behavior throughout these Alberta Next panels has been consistently poor. People have been mistreated. At some of these panels, I think here in Lethbridge, the Premier was seen to be given direction to Mr. McAllister. So I see this Mr. McAllister's continued poor behavior tolerated by our Premier. It reflects as much on the Premier as it does on Mr. McAllister. And it brings me back to her judgment in terms of dealing with people who misbehave. And I'll go all the way back to the Lake of Fire incidents with people who were running for MLA when Danielle Smith was the leader of the Wild Rose Party. And when they misspoke, she refused to discipline them, and it became an election issue. And here we have people who are again misspeaking, and the Premier's refusing to take any real action.
Chaldeans, this incident coming on the final day, the final in-person town hall, being in Calgary. So what kind of reflection is it on the entirety of this whole initiative?
Well, this particular incident should be put in its broader context. Obviously, it's regrettable, but the larger issue here is the next panel is concluding, and the Premier has to decide what to do with what has emerged from this consultation. The Alberta Prosperity people are out there in Washington trying to connect with the Trump administration. So the Premier has to move very fast, make sure her agenda of having Alberta remain in Canada and have the issues and concerns addressed by the federal government dealt with. She's issued a mandate letter to a couple of departments wanting a tougher stance towards the federal government. So I think the ball is in her court to move things forward and get mileage out of the consultation process.
All right. We'll have to see what comes in the very near future. Session of the legislature coming up quickly as well. So for us, time to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, Heather McPherson makes it official. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back. Alberta MP Heather McPherson made it official Sunday, launching her bid for leadership of the federal NDP.
We need to stop shrinking into some sort of purity test. We need to stop pushing people away, and we need to invite people in. We need to have more people at the table, and we need to listen to them.
Kicking off the campaign in her Edmonton-Strathcona constituency, McPherson pledged to make the NDP a viable choice again. She joins activist and filmmaker Avi Lewis and two others in the race. The NDP will select its next leader at a convention in Winnipeg in March. Chris, Union leader Rob Ashton announcing today he's also seeking leadership of the NDP. But where Heather McPherson is concerned, concern. How much of an inside track do you feel she has being one of the remaining 7 NDP MPs?
Well, Heather McPherson has a record of success. She was elected in 2019, re-elected in 2021, and re-elected this year in 2025. I think she's been a courageous politician. She was out in front of the Liberals in terms of recognizing Palestine as a state and recognizing a two-state solution for the Middle East. She's really been pushing and aggressive on trying to move forward and quite outspoken. So she's a courageous politician, and I think she's going to be someone to be reckoned with in the future. She's also supported Alberta's objectives. So we're going to have leaders from all three parties from Alberta if Heather McPherson is successful. I think that'll be interesting. She was a proud supporter of TMX, for example, along with Rachel Notley. So I think she's going to be a candidate to deal with.
Chaldeans, how much of a race do you see building here, and how do you see Heather McPherson fitting in?
Well, Michael, in terms of the race, I think Heather McPherson's major opponent, with the exception of the one that just announced, is going to be Avi Lewis, who has deep roots in the NDP. Father was with the Ontario NDP, grandfather really part of the establishment of the NDP. So, but her opponent, Avi Lewis, is also associated with the LEAP manifesto, which is a kind of a far left approach, which Rachel Notley rejected. So she actually has started off well. Her message of inclusiveness and building a big tent, I think that is the approach to take. However, having said that, I think she's also must be blamed for the support of the Trudeau government when the Trudeau government was causing much damage to the country. And the NDP paid a price with 7 seats, losing official party status. So I think Heather McPherson has to deliver that inclusive, broad-based message. If she does that and advocates for Alberta's interest, I think she will do very well in this contest.
Chris, on that point of building a larger base for the party, Heather McPherson doesn't speak French. How do you see that playing into the equation if she is to mount a successful leadership bid?
Well, I think back to Jack Layton back in 2010, I think it was. He wasn't a polished speaker in French. I think people try to improve their French skills, and it seemed the people in Quebec took to Jack Layton. It's about personality as much as speaking the language. And I think Heather McPherson has potential.
Chaldeans, what do you make of the degree of prominence? And this is a person you've both mentioned already, but the degree of prominence of former Premier Rachel Notley playing in launching the leadership bid. What do you see that signaling?
I think that Rachel Notley is a very, very important figure in NDP politics in Canada. She's a trailblazer, and I think seeing her behind McPherson, Heather McPherson, I think is a very important signal. It also shows that the party is rejecting this kind of LEAP manifesto approach, which is very extreme. And I think if Heather McPherson follows the path of Rachel Notley and builds on the success of leaders like Audrey McLaughlin, Alexa McDonough, I think she will contribute strongly to the evolution of the NDP. The NDP has a space opening up in Canadian politics right now. With the Carney government moving to the middle, there's space to occupy. And I think the winner of this contest has a building job to do. But I think the prospects of the NDP cannot be dismissed outright.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there for time. Great to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chaldeans.